All right, my time says 12 p.m., so we will go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, to this month's Strengthening Early Childhood in Kansas Systems Building webinar. We have a full agenda for you today, so we will go ahead and get started. Um, our Just a reminder, our webinar cadence is the second Wednesday of every month. So our next webinar will be August 14th. Obviously today is July 10th. If you are looking to receive updates about the webinar and about other happenings within the early childhood system, in the meantime, please feel free to sign up for our All In for Kansas Kids e-newsletter on the Children's Cabinet website. Today, we will be hearing a presentation on the new Kansas Early Learning Standards from Natalie McClane and Kim Kennedy, and on the Early Childhood Core Competencies from Linda Logan. And then after that, we will go ahead and have a few early childhood system updates. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Natalie McClane and Kim Kennedy for an updated Kansas Early Learning Standards.
Thanks, Erica. I'm going to be sharing the update for the group today just for the sake of time, but please know that this work was done by an extremely talented group of early childhood professionals representing all different pieces of our early childhood system across Kansas, including Kim, who was our co-leader in this work. So if I've got anybody on today that was a part of this group, I'd love for you to come off camera and give us a wave so everybody can recognize you too. But this was an awesome group to work with. So the next slide. So the Kansas State Board of Education and the Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund both approved our updated KELs in February. This is the fourth revision of the Kansas Early Learning Standards. Our last revision happened in 2014, so it's been a little bit since we had them updated. This QR code will take you to this updated document. The revision team, as I mentioned earlier, had experts from across the birth to kindergarten continuum and had representatives from childcare. We had Head Start, school districts. We had 2- and 4-year colleges, consultants, and trainers. So lots of people helping us get these updated. Next slide, please. So overall, the team strived to make the document more clear and easy to use. As kindergarten standards were updated or added since the 2014 version of this, they've been added into this document. So we're going to kind of dig into each content area to show you some of the changes that were made. Next slide, please. So we're going to start with the approaches to learning. Just to kind of explain the slides. So what you're seeing here are the 2014 kind of version and layout of what this Kansas Early Learning Standards looked like. So I'm going to just kind of talk you through what we've changed and how they've been revised. So if we look at approaches to learning, there weren't really any changes in the areas of persistent and engagement in learning or under initiative, but under creativity, we updated an infant standard 9. Originally, it said begins to exhibit response inhibition, and we updated that to expresses discomfort when needs are not met. We also added a mobile infant standard, which was begins to exhibit response inhibition. And then we also added under creativity some kindergarten standards for problem solving that were not there before. Now we can move on to physical health and development. Those start on page 33 if you're following along in your version, in the updated version. So under physical health and development, what was once large motor skills, we changed that title to be called gross motor skills. It's just more commonly used in the field, and it made more sense along with fine motor. So under the standards themselves, large motor skills and fine motor skills, there weren't really any changes. Under physical fitness, there was just minor wordsmithing to make things more clear. Under nutrition and healthy eating, we did add in kindergarten standards from the nutrition content standards that were not there before. Under personal hygiene, we changed the title of this section to self-care, just made more sense for early childhood, along with just some minor wordsmithing in that area. Under safety, we moved several items up to the next age group to make them more age appropriate, and we also added in kindergarten standards here from the injury and prevention and safety. Next slide was social emotional development. This was our biggest section. So under character development, we renamed some of the subheadings in this section to make them more clear. So a lot of these were very lengthy subheadings. For example, what was once develop, implement, promote, and model core ethical and performance principles, we updated that to become develop understanding of right and wrong. That's much more easy to understand and makes more sense for our early childhood kiddos. Under responsible decision making and problem solving, we renamed some subheadings again in the section to make them more clear and age appropriate. We removed a section on classroom management and school governance. Our 0 to 5-year-olds are not really developmentally ready to be in control of the classroom management or school governance. We also removed references to other standards that had been in other areas and added appropriate standards under the problem-solving subheading. For personal development, we renamed some subheadings again in this section to make them more clear and age appropriate. We removed a toddler standard to prevent a repeated standard from the mobile infants. So it was more appropriate under mobile infant than it was under toddler. So that's where we left it. We removed toddler standard 6 in this area to prevent a repeated standard from mobile infants. And then we updated a subsection on goal setting to make it more developmentally appropriate. For social development, we removed a preschool 3-year-old standard, which was describe situations which can elicit various emotions. It just wasn't age appropriate yet. Our next section is communication and literacy skill development. So this whole section was rearranged to reflect the way most young children learn, starting with speaking and listening, and then language, then literature, then foundational skills, and lastly, writing. What you see here is what it was before, so you can see how it got flipped around a little bit. So under literature, literature and informational text used to be separate headings. We combined those as most of the standards for early childhood were just repeated in each section. Several of the subheadings were reworded to make the section more clear and relevant to early childhood. We did have some minor wordsmithing. We added standards under craft and structure about identifying parts of a book. And then again, the informational text section was just combined with the literature section above. What once said foundational skills, we changed to say foundational reading skills, just to make that more clear about what we're talking about. We wordsmith for more clear language in this section. We removed the subheading phonics and word recognition. Those standards were not removed, but they were just moved to a different section into the phonological awareness section. So those standards are still there, they're just in a different place. Under writing, there were 3 writing subheadings. They were all combined into one writing section. For early childhood, a lot of this stuff was just repeated, or of course, for like 0 to 3, there maybe were not any standards for writing because it's not developmentally appropriate yet. So this section was just combined and simplified into one writing section. For speaking and listening, we renamed the subheadings to make them more clear, and again, did some minor wordsmithing. And then the language standards, we removed a preschool 3-year-old standard and a 4-year-old standard. It says, with guidance and support from adults, explores world relationships and nuances in word meanings. That's a kindergarten standard. It fit best under the kindergarten section, so that's where it lives. For math, under counting and cardinality, we adjusted the numbers to make them more developmentally appropriate. What was once a 4-year-old counts in sequence to 30 was changed to 20. The research that we found showed that 20 was most developmentally appropriate. Again, we had minor wordsmithing for clarity. We removed the standard for 4-year-olds that says understands the relationship between numbers and quantities to 10, connects counting to cardinality because this is a kindergarten standard, so we left it with the kindergarten standards. Under algebraic thinking, we removed infant and mobile infant standards. One said initiates repeated movements, and another was imitates adult-initiated movement patterns. They just didn't closely relate to the operations and algebraic thinking heading, so we went ahead and took those out. Under measurement and data, we removed an infant standard that was not yet developmentally appropriate, and then under geometry, we didn't have any changes. Next, we moved on to science. A section on scientific inquiry was added to this content area, as this is the basis for not just scientific learning, but much of our early childhood learning in general. Under motion and stability, forces and interactions, this section was renamed Movement and Simple Machines. First of all, it's more clear. I think more people can understand what that means. For energy, this section only included items for 3- and 4-year-olds, and they both involved characteristics of the sun. So these were combined into the environment and climate section, and the energy section went away. From molecules to organisms, structures, and processes, the section was combined with Earth and human activity and renamed habitats and human impact. There was minor wordsmithing in this section as well. For Earth systems, this was renamed Environment and Climate. It has some items on weather that were previously found in the social studies content area. They got moved here because it made more sense to have them here. And then Earth and human activity, this was combined with molecules to organisms from above and renamed habitats and human impact. Our social studies section came next. For social studies, the kindergarten standards were updated since the last revision of this document. Now there's only one kindergarten standard for history, government, economics, and geography. And it's just that choices have consequences. So there's an updated kindergarten standard in there. The government section was renamed Community to better reflect early childhood. And then again, we just removed duplicated standards and did minor wordsmithing in this section. Lastly, we had the creative arts section. So previously, the creative arts section had 4 subsections under each heading in this group. We removed the subsections. It just really wasn't necessary for early childhood. So we ended up with these 4 sections, which are dance, music. What was once acting and theater was renamed to dramatic play to reflect early childhood in our practices. And then visual arts. So as you can see, we just basically removed repeated standards and did a little bit of wordsmithing in this section. So now that we've got our standards revised, we want to make sure that you all can access them. So on the next slide, you can see how we can access the updated KELS. So we've got this link, which is www.ksde.org, will take you to KSDE's website. If you click, there's a little alphabet at the top. If you click on E for early childhood, our standards will be on the right-hand side of the page under resources. We do have a web page that will be coming soon, and as soon as we've got that, we will advertise that both in our All In for Kansas Kids newsletters. We'll be sure and put a banner in this webinar. I'm hoping to have that out. I'm going to say it out loud and say by the end of the month, that will go live. We are also working on getting printed copies mailed out to our licensed childcare providers and centers, Head Start and early Head Start programs, as well as school districts and people who support those programs. So mail copies will be coming out. We are also working on translating them into Spanish for sure, and that will be posted on our webpage for sure too. So just a little quick discussion about how to use the KELS. The purpose of our standards is to create that continuum that links early development all the way to school readiness and then later learning in school and life. We want to provide a clear statement of what young children should know and be able to do as a result of experiencing quality early learning opportunities that we're providing them. We want to provide guidance for families and early learning professionals that enhance and support their abilities to create experiences that promote early learning opportunities. And then we want to show that during the early years, children acquire skills, knowledge, and abilities in all developmental and content critical to future learning areas. So they don't just start learning things when they start kindergarten, right? They're all the way back from birth, they're learning things. So the next slide just gives some things that we are hoping the KELS do and what they're not supposed to do. So the KELS are a great tool. It's not a strict rule that kids need to be able to do these things in order to move on to another program or school. They don't have to have all these things. It's just things that we would hope they would learn and things that we can work on in a quality program or with families. They are not to serve as a curriculum in an early program or early learning program or other setting. Standards help identify what children should know and be able to do. The standard provides a lens for looking at curricula and daily activities. So you can use the standards to help choose a curriculum, but it's not the curriculum itself. The curriculum is what's going to spell out the philosophy, the methods, the materials, the organization, all that good stuff. We just want to make sure that the curriculum goes along with what we're hoping to get across to children. They are also not designed to serve as assessment for children. Please do not use the standards as a checklist of things that we want the kids to be able to do. Standards help identify what they should know and be able to do, but the assessment is what determines what children actually are doing and what they know. So let's go to the next section here. So it's important to understand that the standards must be approached in a developmentally appropriate way, and that the most developmentally appropriate way for young children to learn is through play. Adults must have some intentionality on how they set up their play environments to encourage growth towards specific standards. And the standards will help us kind of figure out how we can set those environments up. Next slide. I do want to let everyone know that there is a course available through Casito. If you go to casito.org, and you go to courses and search for Introduction to the Kansas Early Learning Standards, you'll find the online course. It's a 3 clock hour course. It's only $5 to take if you'd like to do it. They've got several different options on starting time. That is available now for anyone who's interested in doing that course. So I flew through that really quick. And I just want to give an opportunity if anybody has any questions about the CELs. I would love to answer any. Also, Kim, I flew through that a lot quicker than I thought. If there's anything you wanted to add, please do feel free to add anything.
I think you did a nice job of covering everything. That was a lot.
Any questions, you're welcome to put it in the chat or come off mute. If you think of any questions, I do have our contact information on the next slide. You can reach out to Kim or I, and we'd be happy to get back with you with any questions that you may have. Okay, thank you for your time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Natalie and Kim. And with that, we will hand it over to Linda Logan.
Hello, I appreciate the opportunity to provide information and updates on the new Kansas Core Competencies. This work was done by a committed and passionate statewide group of early childhood education professionals, some who are also attending this meeting today. So the journey included 4 documents, all which will be referenced in this presentation: the All In for Kansas Kids strategic plan, the Kansas-Missouri Core Competencies, the Nebraska Core Competencies, and the Kansas Core Competencies for early childhood care and education professionals. The Core Competencies Work Group was formed in January 2020 to research the possibility of replacing the Kansas-Missouri Core Competencies to meet the All In for Kansas Kids strategic plan goals. And yeah, if you could go back one slide, that would be great. Thank you. The focus of our work was Goal 6, which you see here, Workforce Strategy 6.2, to implement a high-quality, competency-based professional development system. 6.2.2 further details the competency-based alignment with ECE positions, best practices, and knowledge and skill competencies to support children at all ability levels. The Core Competency Work Group began by researching all national standards, such as NAYC, NAFCC, DEC, and then reviewing 12 states' core competencies. Examples are Iowa, New York, Nebraska, and Pennsylvania. During this process, the Kansas-Missouri core competencies were identified as not meeting the strategic plan, specifically lack of overall awareness, inaccurate leveling, and the lack of use by our ECE workforce. So the summary of the research and reviews determined that a recommendation would be developed to adapt the Nebraska core competencies to provide the start that we envisioned for the early care and education professionals in Kansas. Conversations with the Nebraska Office of Early Childhood confirmed permission to adapt for Kansas. And there were also conversations with the Missouri Office of Early Childhood. And by mutual agreement, it was decided to end the partnership so each state could develop separate core competencies. A recommendation to adapt the Nebraska core competencies for Kansas was presented at the Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund Executive Board meeting in December of 2022, and that was approved. Okay. Throughout the process, the intent for the Kansas Early Childhood Care and Education workforce was to be aware and use the Kansas Core Competencies in their professional development. The purpose of the core competencies you see on this slide really was our guide. So to provide a competency-based foundation, define what adults working with young children should know and be able to do, define levels of competencies, and then provide a system that allows ECCE professionals to evaluate their growth from one level to the next. Okay. So now, looking at all of the parts of the core competencies, we have 9 domains, 56 skill areas, 4 levels, and 389 competencies. And I did count them 3 times just to make sure. And a shout out to Leah Brett, the Casito marketing coordinator, who worked tirelessly with the designer to get a finished copy of the Kansas Core Competencies. We're really excited. So let's go with the 9 domains, and you'll see the acronyms here beside each domain. The coloring system is consistent throughout the document. For example, CGD stands for Child Growth Development. It's followed by HSN, Health, Safety and Nutrition, LE, Learning Environments, PLEC, Planning, Learning Experiences and Curriculum, RSEG, ODA. So you can kind of see how that follows through with each one of the domains. So that is our new domains for the Kansas Core Competencies. Okay. So next we have skill areas and levels, and introductory pages are located within each domain as shown by the CGD screenshot here. There are skill areas for the CGD domain that are listed A through E, and it's families, evidence-based practices, expectations, and general developmental knowledge, curriculum, and theory, and inclusion and special needs. All domains have different skill areas. Some have more, and for example, health, safety, and nutrition has 10 skill areas, whereas one of our other domains, which just escaped my mind right now, has 4. So they are all different in the skill areas. So next we have the levels, and those are consistent among each domain and range from 1 to 4. These levels align with Bloom's taxonomy and really were a primary consideration in our choice of the Nebraska core competencies. These competencies are structured for a progressive skill development. So level 1 is knowledge and understanding, going all the way up to level 4, which is evaluate and create. So each level builds upon the preceding one. We followed the Nebraska core competencies, and we also decided to combine the original 6 levels of Bloom's taxonomy down to 4. So ours are level 1 consists of knowledge, which also includes remembering and understanding, applying, analyzing, and some emergent evaluation. And then level 4 is evaluating and creating. So we'll go to the competencies, and I feel like I'm speeding through this, and I know this is just going to be a quick snapshot for today. So this screenshot displays the competencies 3 of the skill areas and their competencies for child growth and development. And you'll see families, evidence-based practice, and C, expectations and general developmental knowledge. And when you consider your expertise in child growth and development, you would assess the appropriate level and skill area to select a corresponding competency. So I also wanted to share that the core competency work group specifically adapted and reformatted some of the Nebraska core competencies for Kansas. It was not a simple copy and paste development and was very painstaking but joyful at the same time. So let's put it together. Putting the pieces together. So that'd be the next slide. And this is a screenshot of an actual page that is in the core competencies document. But I wanted to just have another opportunity to share, kind of talk about each of the parts of the core competencies to kind of get a baseline of understanding. So you'll see number 1 is the domain. And then number 2, you select the skill area, and you can select more than one skill area in a domain. And then you find which level of competency fits you and your goals for skill development and growth. And then number 4 is you find the corresponding competency. And again, that can be more than one. I know there's a lot of information on that. So let's do an example now. Imagine I've just begun a new role as my assistant teacher in a toddler classroom, and my director recommends that I deepen my understanding of child development, and then I should start as a level 1. I selected child growth and development and focused on the skill area, expectations, and general developmental knowledge. And then I found competency A, which involves recognizing and comprehending age-appropriate and atypical milestones in growth and development. This competency aligns perfectly with my director's advice to enhance my knowledge in child development, particularly in understanding developmental milestones and the appropriate expectations for children in my care. So the competency that I would align my professional development would look like this. CGD, which is child growth and development. C is the skill area, expectations and general developmental knowledge, level 1A. So we have, we've looked at the crucial pieces of the core competencies. And so now for an update, where are we with this? So printers are working on a printing order of almost 13,000 printed copies that will be mailed directly to current licensed facilities, our partners, state offices, higher education, school districts, and licensing surveyors by August 1st. So there will be a request copy tab on the Casito website, but due to the mass mail out of printed copies in July, we will not be accepting requests for printed copies until after September 1st. We want to make sure everybody gets their printed copies before we start sending out copies. And just know our Casito and our partners Childcare are aware of Kansas, and their regional offices also will be receiving more than just one copy, so that all of our staff that go out and work with early educators in the state, we can also provide additional copies if needed. So printed Spanish copies will be available for request after September 1st as well. And I see that the link was put into chat for the English and Spanish PDF. And you can download those copies and save them and use them as you like. And then there's also a link for Bloom's taxonomy if you'd like to have more information on that. So I think we are ready for the next one. Next slide, please. So these are really critical pieces of the Kansas early childhood care and education system. And that's kind of all being developed at the same time. Some of the, the Kansas Core Competencies is just one piece of this early childhood system that is in development or completion. And so we have the CAPE portal, early childhood registry, the Kansas Early Childhood Career Pathway, of course, the Kansas Core Competencies, and you heard from Natalie about the Kansas Early Learning Standards, and then a state self-assessment and individualized professional development plan. So our state has really been busy developing and supporting a systems framework for the Kansas early childhood and care education professionals. So I just like Natalie, I kind of feel like I just sped through that. It was like a cliff note, but also open to questions if we have any time. And here's my contact information, and you'll be able to find updates on the Casito website. Okay.
Linda, can I ask a question?
Yes.
But not of you specifically. So the CALs, there weren't a ton of changes, some, but not nearly as expansive as these core competencies. And I was somebody who got to live in both of those spaces, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity. But I'm really interested in what people who have on this call who have used the core competencies, now that you've had a minute to look at those, I'd like to know what your thoughts are, and maybe that's what Eldana would like to tell us.
No, actually, sorry, I have a totally different question for Linda.
Well, you ask yours first, and then we'll let other people think about.
So thank you. So basically, you said that copies were going to be mailed out to all licensed providers in English, but what about our Spanish-only speaking providers? Is there a way to designate that already, or do they just get the English and then have to ask for the Spanish?
So they will automatically get the English, and then because there was no way for us to determine in this mass mailing list of who would use a Spanish printed copy, then that's why requests for printed Spanish copies will be available later.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And I just want to say to Jennifer's question and just kind of clarify it a bit. I think, Jennifer, are you asking about who has used the Kansas, Missouri core competencies?
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Because as someone who had used the Kansas, Missouri core competencies when I was developing trainings, I often found it difficult to figure out where it would fit. Which competency should I choose to correlate with the training objectives and goals? And then as I also got to go back through all the trainings that I've developed in the last 2 years and translate that from the old Kansas, Missouri core competencies to the new core comps. I was pretty excited. I just was curious to see what others were thinking, particularly since this is based on Bloom's taxonomy and truly a leveling system.
Yeah, I think, Jen, we in our core competencies work, we discovered that a lot of us, uh, the in using the Kansas Missouri core competencies for course development was problematic.
Go ahead, Joanna. You can come off mute.
Hi. It's good to see a lot of names. I used to work on the Kansas side, so it's always nice to be able to see some friendly faces. So I'm curious, have you guys created a crosswalk yet that will be available for trainers and educators who are familiar with the Kansas Missouri core competencies to be able to transfer training and curriculum over using the new competencies?
Yes, and when I was listening to Jennifer, I thought, oh, I forgot to mention about the transition. So perfect question. Thank you.
Great.
So yes, we have developed, there's a side-by-side crosswalk, and then there is this beautifully complex Excel spreadsheet that I had nothing to do with, that you can click on the Kansas Missouri core competency, and it will take you to a corresponding Kansas core competency. Now, there's part of that we have discovered, and I think our child care aware friends would mimic this. Casito and Child Care Aware have already started that transition. We have found that because of the dynamics with the Kansas Missouri core competency, we have had to go back and actually look at the course objectives and the content of the course to find maybe a little better match for the core competency. So for the Kansas core competencies, just a heads up, we thought it was going to be really easy, and now it takes a little bit more of a process. But please feel free to email me, and I would be happy to send anyone those conversion tools that we've developed.
Linda,
Yes.
we have a question in the chat. It says, new director here. Thank you for all the information and resources. Where does one start?
Well, I would say contact me, and I will direct you to some resources that both Child Care Aware and Casito have, and we'd be happy to help you in that process. You're welcome. Oh, and I think I did forget, I think it was on the screen, but there is an online core competencies course being developed. Hoping for registration late July, early August. You, upon completion, it'll be approved for 2 KDHE hours. Upon completion, you will receive a printed copy, but in the registration, just so we conserve printed copies, in the registration, you will be asked if you've already received a copy. So
Thank you so much, Linda, for all of the wonderful information. Does anyone have any final questions?
thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much to all of our presenters today. Lots of wonderful information to see the professional development side of our early childhood system and all of the hard work that has gone into alignment and the system's view of our early childhood care. So thank you so much to Natalie and Kim and Linda. We will go ahead and get started on our early childhood systems updates. So we have our 2024 Kansas Child Care Market Rate Analysis. So DCF completes a child care market analysis and narrow cost analysis every 3 years. This process helps determine the child care assistance or child care subsidy provider rates and informs other child care assistance policies. The 2024 Kansas Child Care Market Analysis is now available for review. Comments on the analysis are being accepted now through July 15th and may be shared via email to the email address listed there. Please use market rate analysis as the subject line in your email. And Bree will go ahead and put that link for the childcare market analysis in the chat. Next, we have a parent and caregiver fireside chat on July 22nd from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Central. Join the family leadership team to continue their monthly virtual fireside chats. This month's topic is prenatal to postpartum for expecting parents and infants to 12 months. Registration will be open till July 15th, and look for more information on the All In for Kansas Kids newsletter. The Patterson Family Foundation has a rural child care program. The Rural Child Care Program, school districts, and community-based center grants funds can be used to support short-term operational needs, training and certificate needs, and or minor capital needs aimed at expanding or enhancing childcare access. Applications are open from June 26th and will close July 30th. To learn more about this grant and to stay up to date about future grant opportunities, please look at the Patterson Family Foundation website, and that link will also be put in the chat. Capata has a monthly training series. The new monthly training series for teachers and educators for 2024 to the 2025 year is free to all current Capata members. Register to become a member. The link will be put into the chat, and each month will feature a different topic relevant to early childhood and family issues. July 17th is Toddlers That Won't Go to Bed. August 1st and 29th is the DEIA Lunch and Learn and Webinar 2. September 12th and 19th is Part B, Part C, Understanding Services. And October 3rd is Talking with Families, Developmental Screening. Just a few final reminders before we end for today. The next early childhood recommendations panel is Friday, July 19th from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. The next Children's Cabinet meeting is Friday, August 2nd from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then our next iteration of this webinar, the Early Childhood Systems Building webinar, will be August 14th. You can find all of these meetings and more on the Cabinet's Children Cabinet YouTube channel. And I see that we have a question in the chat. As far as signing up for all of these emails, signing up for the newsletter is one of the best ways that you can, yes, Macy, to go ahead and get updates on all of these different pieces of the Early Childhood Systems Building webinar and work that's happening across Kansas. Thank you so much, and please stay up to date with all of our different communication avenues. And I will go ahead and stick around if anyone has any other questions, but that is all I have for everyone today. And thank you again to all of our great presenters.
Eric, I have a quick question because this is so packed full of information that I want to share with everyone. Will it be on the website pretty quickly for us to share the link? I'm hoping.
I believe the link, yep, usually they are up with it by the end of the week.
Okay, cool. That's when I'll start looking. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jennifer.